Hey there. Welcome back to Undercover Mysteries. Today, we've got a collection of haunting stories that will leave you questioning everything. Some of these tales have strange twists, others have clues that don't add up, but there's one story in particular that stands out. Stay with us as we unravel these unsettling mysteries. In mid-1974, two expert divers, Roger Solari and Martin Farr, geared up for a groundbreaking cave exploration in the peaceful Welsh countryside. Their target, the unexplored depths of Agen, a cave system that had captivated adventurers for years. Roger held high respect among British cave divers, but as they started this bold mission, the day's outcome remained uncertain. Agen's discovery dated back to 1949. Since then, explorers had carefully mapped over 32 kilometers of twisting tunnels, hidden rooms, and mysterious paths. For cave enthusiasts like Roger and Martin, finding a new passage and naming it marked the ultimate achievement. Yet, venturing into these unknown areas always brought a mix of danger and excitement. The cave depths could be as perilous as they were thrilling. Entering Agen proved challenging. A strong metal gate, kept locked by officials, blocked the way. Special permission granted access. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. A chilly breeze met them as they entered the dark, winding tunnels. Narrow paths, smoothed by years of water flow, crisscrossed like a labyrinth. These routes held many dead ends and bat colonies, making navigation tricky and unsettling. The secret to avoiding these traps lay in always taking the left path at junctions. After squeezing through tight, cramped corridors for about 30 minutes, the tunnel widened into the Grand Circle, a massive cavern. In this enormous space, tall rock formations stretched upwards, fading into the unseen ceiling high above. Cool, damp air filled the space, with constant water drips from above and occasional low rumbles echoing through the cave. Pressing deeper, they faced another obstacle, a narrow gap between two large boulders, leading to the southern stream passage. This section offered easier navigation with fewer hurdles. The path widened here, allowing for walking. Eventually, they reached a small waterfall. A handline helped explorers climb up the 7-foot drop. At this point, they faced a choice. To the left, a fixed line led to stunning chambers with extraordinary natural formations, including some of the world's finest urchin formations. But to the right, the cave plunged even deeper into the unknown. Roger and Martin chose this direction, a decision that would forever alter their lives. In 1972, divers John Parker and Jeff Phillips pushed the southern stream passage over 2,000 feet further. They stopped, wary of growing dangers. Martin, however, refused to quit. He aimed to explore deeper into what he dubbed the Dream Passage. Martin had reached Parker's endpoint before, but ran out of air. His goal remained firm, to surpass all previous attempts. A month later, he and his friend Roger boldly decided to try again. The pair spent hours navigating mapped cave sections. This journey demanded intense preparation and physical toughness. Timing was crucial. They planned during a dry spell to avoid deadly flooding risks. Both men boasted impressive experience. Roger had dived caves since age 12 and led the Speleological Society in school. Yet, this exploration would test their limits. After a grueling trek, they reached the dive site. By the dark, still water's edge, they discussed their plan. Martin would lead, and either could turn back if needed. Submerging into the first sump, silence enveloped them. The initial 3 sumps proved manageable for their skill level, with brief rests between. The 4th sump, however, was uncharted territory. Its extent remained unknown. Martin carried a 1,000-foot line reel, far longer than previous sumps required. Roger brought a 400-foot line, relying on Martin's lead. Murky water hampered visibility here. They moved slowly, but needed to speed up to conserve air for the return trip. Martin hoped this sump might lead to new discoveries, possibly a fifth sump beyond, but they couldn't assume anything. The dive grew more challenging as they pressed on. Each kick propelled them further into the unknown, their lights barely piercing the murk ahead. The weight of the water pressed in from all sides, a constant reminder of their vulnerable position. Martin's mind raced with possibilities. What lay beyond this sump? A vast chamber? A network of unexplored passages? The thrill of potential discovery drove him forward, even as caution nagged at the back of his mind. Roger followed closely, keeping a watchful eye on his partner and the guideline. The further they went, the more isolated they became from the outside world. In this underwater realm, they relied entirely on each other and their equipment. As they swam, the passage seemed to narrow. The walls closed in, creating a sense of claustrophobia that even experienced cave divers found unsettling. Yet they pressed on, driven by their shared passion for exploration and the promise of what lay ahead. Midway through the dive, Roger signaled sinus trouble. They'd faced this before, so they continued. When the discomfort persisted, Martin suggested surfacing. Roger, determined, pushed on. Their lines ran out, but the passage stretched ahead. They linked lines to dive deeper. Martin's air gauge neared the safety limit. The urge to explore overpowered caution. About 150 feet later, just as retreat seemed necessary, hope emerged. A steep gravel bank sloping upward. Excitement surged through Martin. A major discovery seemed close. He climbed higher, searching for an air pocket or new chamber. Minutes passed. Reality hit. A dead end. No surface breakthrough. Martin's air supply dwindled dangerously. Conservation became crucial for the return journey. Panic rising, Martin turned back. He spotted Roger, still searching ahead. Martin signaled retreat. They'd likely reach the sump's end. Dwindling air left no room for delay. Martin hurried back, expecting Roger close behind. A pause to check revealed Roger's absence. Unable to wait, Martin surfaced, hoping for Roger's quick return. Minutes ticked by. No Roger. Concern grew. Finally, Martin made a tough call. He re-entered the water, pulling the line. It went slack. Something was wrong. The line had been cut, about 30 feet past their real connection point. The situation's gravity hit hard. With his own air running low, Martin had no choice but to exit and seek help. He immediately contacted John Parker and John Elliott, both experienced divers. They alerted police and started a rescue operation. Despite tireless efforts, Roger remained unfound. After 10.5 grueling hours of searching, they returned empty-handed. To this day, Roger's body lies lost in Agen All's depths. Some theorize he got tangled and cut his line to free himself. The true events of that day remain shrouded in mystery. The cave's darkness had claimed another victim. The allure of exploration, the thrill of the unknown, had led to tragedy. Martin's decision to leave weighed heavily. He knew the risks, yet the outcome still shocked him. In the aftermath, the caving community mourned. Questions arose about safety protocols and the limits of human exploration. The incident served as a stark reminder of nature's unforgiving power. For Martin, the experience left an indelible mark. The joy of discovery now mingled with the pain of loss. He grappled with guilt, wondering if he could have done more. The cave that once promised adventure now held only sorrow. The rescue team's efforts, though unsuccessful, showcased the tight-knit caving community's dedication. They risked their lives searching for one of their own, demonstrating unwavering commitment. In the early 20th century, Kentucky was in the midst of the cave wars. Cave owners fiercely competed to attract tourists to their underground marvels. It was a cutthroat business, with each cave trying to outdo the others in terms of accessibility and spectacle. William Floyd Collin, always on the lookout for the next big discovery, believed he could find a new cave that would draw tourists and provide financial security for his family. In late December of 1924, Floyd made a discovery that would change his life forever. Hidden deep within the rugged terrain of Kentucky was a cave known as Sand Cave. For Floyd, this was more than just a cave, it was an opportunity. The cave was located just 100 yards from a highway, making it easily accessible to tourists. Sensing the potential for profit, Floyd quickly struck a deal with the owners of the property. They agreed to give him 50% of the profits from the exploration of the cave. With this agreement in place, Floyd eagerly began his work, determined to turn the cave into a major tourist attraction. However, the cave was not yet open to the public. There was no proper entrance, which had discouraged other explorers and tourists from venturing inside. But Floyd was undeterred. For weeks, he spent countless hours digging deeper into the cave, widening the passageways and removing loose rocks. His goal was to create a suitable opening that would make the cave accessible to visitors. Finally, after days of relentless work, Floyd was on the brink of success. On the morning of January 30th, 1925, with dreams of turning the cave into a profitable tourist attraction, he set out once again to continue his work. The day was cold, with snow gently falling as Floyd made his way into the cave, a kerosene lantern in hand. The cave was still narrow and difficult to navigate, but Floyd was no stranger to these challenges. He had already managed to make significant progress, even squeezing through a tiny opening known as the squeeze, a narrow passage only 9 inches tall. It wide enough for a child to crawl through. For most people, this would have been the end of the journey, but Floyd was not like most people. Determined to explore what lay beyond, he lay flat on the ground, tucking in his stomach to reduce his body's mass as much as possible. Slowly, he began to push himself through the tiny opening, using only his feet to propel himself forward. Floyd was the first and only person to push beyond the squeeze. As he crawled deeper into the cave, the passage was treacherous. The walls were lined with sharp gypsum crystals that tore at his clothes and skin, making progress slow and painful. But Floyd pressed on. After what felt like an eternity, he finally emerged on the other side. The space was still cramped, but it offered enough room for him to move. Ahead of him was a ledge that dropped off into a narrow pit. Carefully, Floyd began to descend into the pit. He was excited, knowing that he was close to reaching the main cavern he had been searching for. As he made his way down, he removed loose rocks to further open the passage. At last, he reached the bottom of the pit and found himself in a large, open cavern. It was the moment he had been waiting for, the discovery of Sand Cave. Overwhelmed with joy, Floyd took a moment to marvel at his find, but his excitement was short-lived. The flickering light of his lantern reminded him that he needed to leave quickly before he was plunged into darkness. He began his ascent, carefully climbing back up the narrow pit. But while pushing his lantern through the narrow passage, it slipped, fell, and shattered, plunging him into total darkness. But this was only the beginning of his ordeal. As Floyd tried to maneuver his way out, he accidentally dislodged a loose rock that fell on his left leg, pinning him to the ground. Despite his best efforts to free himself, more rocks shifted, further trapping his body and rendering him immobile. Hours passed as Floyd lay there, helpless and alone. He screamed for help, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. Time dragged on, and as the day turned to night, Floyd's hope began to wane. He was trapped, deep underground, with no way to escape. Nearly 24 hours later, Floyd's absence was noticed. 2 local property owners, Ed Estes and B. Doyle, along with Doyle's 17-year-old son, Jewel, went to check on him. They found his coat and hat near the cave's entrance, but heard no response when they called out his name. Determined to find him, young Jewel bravely ventured into the cave, eventually reaching Floyd. But the situation was dire. Floyd was buried under heaps of gravel and rock, with only his torso visible. Floyd was relieved to see Jewel and quickly asked him to fetch his brothers for help. By noon, one of Floyd's brothers, Marshall, and their father, known as Pap, arrived at the cave. They found a crowd of people already gathered, drawn by the news of Floyd's predicament. Marshall, along with another man, entered the cave and began digging to widen the tunnel leading down to Floyd. But the task was difficult, and they had to be careful not to dislodge any more rocks. Soon, Floyd's other brother, Homer, arrived, distraught and determined to save Floyd. Homer had declined to join Floyd that fateful morning, and now he was consumed with guilt. Pushing through the narrow passages, Homer reached Floyd, but the situation was dire. As the hours turned into days, the story of Floyd's ordeal captured the nation. Reporters flocked to the site, including S.K. Skeets Miller, a small-statured journalist who managed to squeeze into the cave to interview Floyd. Miller's reports, broadcast over the relatively new medium of radio, brought Floyd's plight into homes across the country. The crowd outside had started several bonfires to keep warm, and the heat was causing the ice outside the cave to melt. The resulting water was seeping into the cave, making the passageways slippery and dangerous. Despite these challenges, Homer and the other rescuers worked tirelessly to free Floyd. After 4 days of effort, they were able to free Floyd's hands. They then attempted to pull him out using a rope tied around his chest, but the pain was unbearable for Floyd. He cried out for them to stop, saying it felt like he was being torn in two. Exhausted and in pain, Homer continued to remove rocks, but he eventually had to rest. As more crowd gathered, what began as a desperate rescue mission quickly turned into a spectacle. Thousands of onlookers gathered, turning the site into a carnival. Prices for food and lodging skyrocketed, and the roads leading to the cave were lined with cars. The increased weight of the crowd further destabilized the cave, adding to the already immense challenges faced by the rescuers. Then, on Wednesday afternoon, disaster struck. The entrance to the pit collapsed, cutting off all access to Floyd. Miraculously, no one was inside the pit at the time, and Floyd himself was unharmed. But now there was no way to reach him. In a last-ditch effort, a team of workers began digging a shaft into the cave, hoping to reach Floyd from above. They worked for days, with only a light bulb placed near Floyd to indicate that he was still alive. But as the days passed, Floyd's condition deteriorated. He was cold, dehydrated, and exhausted. Finally, on February 16, 1925, nearly 3 weeks after Floyd had become trapped, a worker named Brenner reached him. But it was too late. Floyd Collins had died, his body still trapped in the cave. In the end, the cave became Floyd's final resting place. The shaft was filled in, and his body was left where it had been found. But the story didn't end there. Months later, Homer returned to the cave, determined to give his brother a proper burial. He had the shaft reopened and Floyd's body removed, finally laying him to rest above ground. Subscribe our channel if you liked our content. With that being said, I'll see you for the next one. Hey there, explorers. Welcome back to Undercover Mysteries. Today, we're going deep into 3 mysterious cave disasters involving students who set out in search of adventure but found something far more sinister waiting for them. Each story has its own chilling twist, but the final one, well, let's just say it ends in a way you won't believe. If you think you're ready for what's about to unfold, let's dive into the unknown. Abbey Caves in northern New Zealand offers a unique adventure for those seeking an unspoiled natural experience. These caves remain untouched by human modifications, and there are no guides to lead the way. You're truly on your own. The journey through Abbey Caves follows a circular path that spans about 4,265 feet, featuring 3 main caves: Organ Cave, Middle Cave, and Ivy Cave. Along the way, signs will help you find your way, but it's important to remember that you're navigating at your own risk. Organ Cave requires a bit of a climb to reach the cave floor. The entrance is a tight squeeze between a rock and the cave wall. The cave itself is about 984 feet long, with impressive striped walls and a round chamber that's home to glowworms. Ivy Cave, located near a stream, is the last stop. It's a bit tricky to access, requiring you to navigate down a slippery stone slope and crouch through narrow passages. This cave is about 656 feet long and consists of two main sections. Middle Cave is the easiest to access, with a wide entrance and a flat, ankle-deep water path. However, safety is paramount when exploring these caves. The underground environment can be unpredictable, with risks like sudden water rises and falling rocks, particularly at the entrance to Agen Cave. On May 9, 2023, the students of Whangarei Boys High School in northern New Zealand were filled with anticipation. It was not an ordinary school day. 15 students and 2 teachers were about to embark on an outdoor education trip to Abbey Caves Reserve. Among them was 15-year-old Karnan Patara, a bright student eager to explore the wonders of the caves. The trip was supposed to be a day of adventure and learning, but it would soon turn into a tragic event that would deeply affect the entire community. The day started like any other, with the students gathering at the school early in the morning. They were all excited, chatting about the day ahead and what they might discover in the caves. The teachers briefed the students on the activities planned for the day, which included exploring the caves and learning about the unique geological formations within them. Abbey Caves, located near Whangarei, is a popular destination for school trips and outdoor activities. The caves are known for their impressive rock formations, underground streams, and the challenge they present to explorers. However, on that same morning, around 9 a.m., the National Broadcasting Service issued a weather warning. Meteorologists predicted heavy rainfall in the region, which could lead to rapidly rising streams and rivers. Abbey Caves, in particular, was flagged as a high-risk area for flash floods. Despite these warnings, the decision was made to proceed with the trip. The school's outdoor education program was an important part of the curriculum, and the teachers believed that the experience would be valuable for the students. The group arrived at Abbey Caves Reserve in high spirits. The weather was cloudy, but there was no immediate sign of the heavy rain that had been predicted. The students were eager to start exploring, and the teachers began guiding them toward the entrance of Agen Cave, one of the largest and most impressive caves in the reserve. The students, including Karnan, were filled with excitement as they prepared to enter the cave. For many of them, it was their first time exploring a cave, and they were eager to see what lay inside. As the group made their way into Agen Cave, they were captivated by the beauty of the underground world. The cave's walls were lined with intricate rock formations, and the students marveled at the natural wonders around them. The teachers led the group through the main passage, explaining the geological processes that had formed the cave over thousands of years. The students listened intently, eager to learn and explore further. But as they ventured deeper into the cave, the weather outside began to change. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and the first drops of rain began to fall. The rain quickly intensified, turning into a torrential downpour. The streams around the cave, which had been calm when the group arrived, started to swell rapidly. Inside the cave, the students and teachers were unaware of the danger that was approaching. Suddenly, the water inside the cave began to rise. What had been a dry passage just moments before was now filling with water at an alarming rate. The students and teachers quickly realized that they were in a dangerous situation. Panic set in as the water continued to rise, and the group scrambled to find higher ground. The cave, which had seemed like a safe place to explore, was now turning into a trap. Karnan, along with his classmates, tried to stay calm as they navigated the rising water. The teachers did their best to keep the group together, urging the students to move quickly and stay close. But the water was rising too fast. The current became stronger, making it difficult to maintain balance. The students, some of whom were not strong swimmers, struggled to keep their heads above water. As the group moved through the cave, the water level continued to rise, reaching their waists, then their chests, and finally their necks. The situation was dire. In the chaos, Karnan lost his footing and was swept away by the powerful current. Despite the efforts of his classmates and teachers to reach him, the water was too strong. Karnan was carried deeper into the cave, where the current made it impossible for him to escape. The group, now realizing that one of their own was missing, was filled with fear and desperation. Outside the cave, a construction worker named Caleb Salisbury was going about his day, working on a nearby project. As the rain intensified, Caleb noticed the unusual amount of water accumulating around the site. He then saw a group of young boys running toward him, clearly distressed. The boys had managed to escape the cave and were frantically seeking help. Caleb, understanding the urgency of the situation, immediately stopped what he was doing and called emergency services. Caleb didn't hesitate to act. After making the call, he joined the boys and rushed to the entrance of the cave, where he saw one of the teachers inside struggling to rescue the remaining students. Emergency responders arrived on the scene within minutes. They quickly assessed the situation and began efforts to rescue the trapped students. The conditions inside the cave were challenging. The rescue teams worked tirelessly, but the cave's narrow passages and the powerful current made their task extremely difficult. The teacher inside the cave managed to rescue several students, pulling them from the water and guiding them to safety. But when he realized that Karnan was still missing, he was devastated. The weight of the tragedy bore down on him, and he was left heartbroken and guilt-ridden. As news of the incident spread, search and rescue teams continued to look for Karnan. They used specialized equipment to comb through the cave and surrounding areas, hoping to find him. The search went on for hours, with the rescue teams refusing to give up. But as the day wore on, hope began to fade. After more than 6 hours of searching, the decision was made to pause the search for the night due to the dangerous conditions. The rescuers were exhausted, and the rising water made it too dangerous to continue. Later that night, the search resumed, and tragically, Karnan's lifeless body was found. He had been swept away by the floodwaters, and his young life was lost. A helicopter was used to recover his body and transport him from the site. The discovery of Karnan's body was a devastating blow to the community, and the loss was felt deeply by everyone involved. On September 9, 1990, Mark Healey checked into a YMCA hostel in Melbourne. He told his family he was heading out for a skiing trip to clear his mind. But in truth, Healey had a different plan. The plan that would end in tragedy. Healey had two loves in life, the thrill of adventure and the joy of teaching. Every chance he got, he was out exploring. Australia was his favorite destination, and he had embarked on countless expeditions across Tasmania and Western Australia. Whether he was skiing down snowy slopes, navigating through caves, or hiking along rugged trails, Healey lived for the excitement of the great outdoors. Over the years, he honed his skills and became quite the expert, always seeking the next adrenaline rush and the beauty of uncharted territories. But just as much as he loved his adventures, Healey was passionate about teaching. He often said that educating young minds was his true calling. His dedication to his students was evident in everything he did. He believed in the power of education and inspiring the next generation. So when the school where he taught announced a special excursion to encourage students to embrace adventure, Healey was over the moon. The cherry on top was when he was selected to lead the trip. It was the perfect blend of his two great loves, adventure and teaching. He couldn't have been more excited, not knowing the dark twist this journey would take. The students were told this trip wasn't for those with weak hearts. The itinerary included rock climbing, whitewater rafting, and cave exploration. Despite the stern warning, many students eagerly signed up. They were drawn to the thrill and the promise of a memorable experience. One of the places they planned to explore was the Mystery Creek Cave, nestled within Southwest National Park. Although ideal for beginner cavers, it was not without its risks. There were hidden dangers, and a lack of caution could turn a thrilling adventure into a deadly one. Nonetheless, with his extensive experience, Healey felt confident in his ability to lead the students safely through the cave. On the morning of July 2, 1990, 19 students eagerly gathered for the expedition. They were buzzing with excitement, chatting about the adventure that awaited them. 8 of them were particularly excited about the cave exploration. They had heard stories about the cave's beauty and were eager to see it for themselves. Knowing the potential risks, Healey enlisted the help of another teacher, Joanne, and a seasoned colleague, Danielle. He wanted to ensure that the students were well supervised and safe at all times. By noon, the group was on their way, ready for an adventure despite the gloomy, rainy weather. They were well prepared with sturdy boots, helmets, and wetsuits, ensuring they could handle the challenges ahead. As they approached the entrance to Mystery Creek Cave, they met a man who had just excited. He was drenched and looked weary. He warned them that the cave was flooded up to his boots due to the heavy rain and suggested they come back another day. He shared his concern about the rising water levels and the potential danger, but Healey, confident in his expertise, decided to proceed. He believed he could guide the students through the cave safely. He had faced challenging conditions before and trusted his skills and judgment. Inside, the cave was even more breathtaking than they had imagined. The walls were adorned with glowworms, casting a magical luminous ambiance. However, they soon encountered rising water levels to cross safely. Healey demonstrated a clever technique he had learned from his many expeditions. They would form a human chain with the strongest students at each end and Healey in the middle. Where the water was deepest, those not in the chain would hold onto it as they crossed. This method worked perfectly, and the students found it both effective and enjoyable, eager to use it again. By 4:30 p.m., they reached a narrow section known as the Matchbox Squeeze. This part of the cave was notoriously tight, requiring them to wriggle through to continue on their path. It was a challenge, but they were up for it. On the other side, they moved towards the cave entrance via the laundry chute. As they progressed, Healey noticed the sound of water was getting louder, indicating rising pressure. The noise of the flowing water echoed through the cave, creating an ominous soundtrack to their journey. He decided they needed to use the human chain technique again to cross safely. The students enthusiastically formed the chain, but this time, the water was up to Healey's knees, and the current was stronger. They began crossing, but the first student, a petite girl, almost fell due to the current. Healey caught her just in time, and she made it across safely. His heart raced with concern, but he kept calm to avoid alarming the students. He knew that if he showed fear, it would only increase their anxiety. The next student started crossing, encouraged by Healey and the others. They cheered her on, providing words of encouragement and support. Just as she was about to reach the other side, the current pulled her down. She screamed for help, and Healey knew he had to act quickly. Her friend and one of the teachers, Joanne, rushed to save her, but the current pulled them too. The situation was becoming increasingly dire. Healey realized he needed to get the remaining students to safety first. He couldn't afford to lose any more time. He let them out of the cave quickly, urging them to stay close and move swiftly. The rain had made the ground slippery, and they had to be careful with each step. Once the students were safe, he returned to search for the missing 3. Hours passed with no sign of them. Authorities arrived, finding Healey devastated. The 3 victims were later found, but it was too late. The cave had claimed their lives. Despite the tragedy, Healey was hailed as a hero. People praised his efforts, acknowledging the bravery and dedication he had shown. He had done everything in his power to ensure the safety of the students. But Healey couldn't shake the guilt. He felt responsible, believing he could have done more to prevent the loss. The weight of the tragedy pressed heavily on him, haunting his every thought. 2 months later, unable to cope with the pain, Healey packed some gear and told his family he was going skiing. They wished him well. Unaware of the turmoil he was facing, he checked into the Abbey hostel in Melbourne. In a moment of despair, he climbed to the 10th floor and ended his life. The loss of Healey was a devastating blow to those who knew him. He had been a source of inspiration and strength, and his absence left a void that could never be filled. This urge of adventure reminds us about a similar incident that took place in history. Ignoring all caution, one man, driven by a thirst for discovery, ventured into an uncharted passage that turned their fun camping trip into a chilling nightmare. You should check it out. Subscribe our channel if you liked our content. In the depths of a hidden cave, a young boy's life hangs by a thread. Morris Batel, an adventurous spirit trapped in a nightmare. A fateful twist of events left him alone and wedged in the treacherous Wildcat Cave. This is a story of bravery, resilience, and the incredible power of community. This is the breakdown of Wildcat Cave tragedy. Morris Batel was a vibrant young boy until 1955, when his whole world came crashing down. His parents' divorce left him and his brother Donald to navigate a turbulent childhood filled with uncertainty and instability. Without a solid parental figure, they were shuffled from one foster home to another, facing the harsh realities of a fragmented family life. Eventually, they found some semblance of stability at a Methodist children's home. However, the lack of a stable family environment left Morris seeking solace elsewhere. He found it in a hidden refuge, a nearby cave known as Wildcat Cave. Wildcat Cave, perched in the red sandstone walls about 15 feet above a dry stream bed, was both thrilling and perilous. The cave's entrance started as a manageable 4-foot-high opening, but quickly narrowed into tight crawling passages. Despite its dangers, Morris was drawn to its quiet seclusion. It became his escape, a place where he could be alone with his thoughts. He visited the cave frequently, although he never ventured too far, aware of the risks it posed. He had once gotten lost in its dark, winding passages, but his friends had managed to find and rescue him just in time. On October 5th, 1965, a group of children from the Methodist foster home, including Morris, set out on a bus trip to a nearby village. The anticipation was high, and the kids were excited for the adventure ahead. Unfortunately, a flat tire forced a change of plans, redirecting them to Wildcat Cave. The unexpected detour was met with enthusiasm by Morris and his friends, who saw it as an opportunity to explore the cave more thoroughly than ever before. As the group ventured further into the cave, the thrill of exploration gripped them. The cave's mysterious allure beckoned them deeper into its depths. However, in the midst of their excitement, Morris became separated from his friends. Panic set in as he realized he was alone in the labyrinth of narrow passages. He called out for help, but the thick rock walls swallowed his cries. Determined to find his way back, he began retracing his steps, only to become more disoriented. Meanwhile, Morris's friends had exited the cave, assuming he had done so before them. They only realized he was missing when they regrouped outside. Inside the cave, Morris faced mounting terror. He took a wrong turn down a slippery passage that grew increasingly narrow. He found himself in a tight crevice wedged between the rock walls. Panic and claustrophobia gripped him as he struggled to free himself, only to become more tightly stuck. Hours passed before Morris's absence was noticed by the teachers and his friends. William Powell, one of the teachers, led a rescue effort into the cave. Smaller in stature, Powell managed to reach Morris and attempted to calm him. Morris could barely speak, his face pressed against the cold rock. Using a belt, Powell tried to pull Morris free, but the belt snapped, worsening the situation as Morris's face collided painfully with the rock. Realizing the severity of the situation, Powell called for professional rescuers. Fire Chief Paul Cordera and his team arrived quickly, but their initial attempts to use hooks to free Morris proved futile. The narrow, twisting passages of the cave presented significant challenges, and drilling through the rock risked causing a cave-in. As the night wore on, hopes of a quick rescue dimmed. News of Morris's plight spread quickly, capturing national attention. Volunteers and professionals alike flocked to the scene, offering their help. Among them was Evelyn Pinky Petite, a small but determined nurse who managed to wriggle close enough to comfort Morris, although she couldn't reach him, experienced caver. Terry Brown devised a pulley system to try to extract Morris, but it only moved him a few inches at a time. The situation grew more dire as hours turned into a full day. Morris had been trapped for over 24 hours without food or water. His strength was waning, and rescuers feared he would lose consciousness, which would make it nearly impossible to save him. Desperate for a solution, they sought out anyone small and brave enough to reach Morris and assist in the rescue. Enter Michael Urey, an Eagle Scout of similar build to Morris, who volunteered to crawl into the cave. With a new plan in place, Michael was to loop ropes around Morris and apply a glycerin solution to make him slippery. Michael navigated the tight passages and managed to reach Morris, tying ropes around his ankles and legs. With coordinated efforts from above and below, they began the painstaking process of pulling Morris free. Despite several slips and setbacks, their determination paid off. After a grueling and tense effort, Morris finally broke free from the crevice. Cheers erupted from the gathered crowd as he was carefully wrapped in a blanket and carried out of the cave more than 24 hours after he had first become trapped. Spectators applauded as Morris was loaded into an ambulance, exhausted but alive. Morris was treated for exhaustion, cuts, bruises, and a significant bruise on his cheek. The ordeal had been harrowing, but he had survived thanks to the tireless efforts of rescuers and volunteers. The cave was later sealed shut to prevent any future tragedies, a stark reminder of the dangers it held. Morris Batel's story is one of resilience, bravery, and the extraordinary efforts of a community coming together to save a young life. It serves as a powerful testament to the human spirit and the lengths to which people will go to help those in need. The traumatic experience left a lasting impact on Morris, but it also highlighted the importance of hope and perseverance in the face of adversity. After his rescue, Morris tried to return to a semblance of normal life. The physical and emotional scars took time to heal, but the support of his brother, friends, and the community helped him recover. He found solace in sharing his story, using his experience to inspire others facing their own challenges. His story became a symbol of hope, demonstrating that even in the darkest times, there is always a chance for rescue and redemption. Hey explorers, welcome back to Undercover Mysteries. Today's episode takes us deep into the darkness with two chilling cave diving stories. In the first, a dive ends in disaster. But the second story will leave you with questions that may never be answered, because the diver vanished and no trace of their body was ever found. What really happened in the depths? Let's begin. Marcin Kay lived life on the edge, always seeking adventure. Cave diving captured his heart like nothing else. He once told his mom that if he died cave diving, he'd go out doing what he loved most. This statement worried his mom, Barbar, who felt nervous about his diving passion. She had heard many stories of divers not returning from their underwater expeditions. Still, she understood that diving gave Marcin a unique sense of peace and joy. Diving wasn't Marcin's only interest. He worked as a network engineer at Life South Community Blood Center in Gainesville, Florida. For 6 years, he balanced his day job with his love for underwater adventures. Marcin also enjoyed surfing and even tried skydiving. But the ocean, especially the hidden world beneath its surface, remained his true love. Marcin's love for water ran in the family. His father's service in the Coast Guard sparked Marcin's early fascination with swimming, surfing, and diving. This connection with the ocean led him to join Karst Underwater Research, a non-profit organization exploring underwater cave systems. Kerr suited Marcin perfectly. The group specialized in exploring deep, dangerous areas, gathering valuable data for scientific research. Florida, with its network of over 400 underwater caves, served as the ideal base for cougar. While known for its beaches, Florida's underwater cave systems offered a different kind of attraction. For Marson and his fellow divers, the Weeki Wachee Springs held a special allure. Tourists knew it for its mermaid shows, but experienced divers saw it differently. Beneath the mermaid performances, a dangerous cave system existed, a place too risky even for the trained performers. Exploration of the Weeki Wachee cave system began in the late 1990s. Strong water pressure at the entrance made it challenging for even seasoned divers to enter. This changed in 2007 when a drought lowered water levels, allowing easier access. With newer diving technologies, explorers could now venture deeper into the caves and map previously unreachable areas. On March 31, 2012, Marson joined a 5-person dive team to explore Weeki Wachee's depths. Cave diving demands intense preparation and caution. KUR, a well-organized group, planned this dive for weeks. They assembled a 25-member team, including 7 safety divers, to ensure a smooth operation. The team entered the water at 3:30 p.m. Marson had all the necessary gear, a full scuba tank, and perfectly working regulators. The first challenge was the cave's tight entrance, allowing only one diver through at a time. Marson passed through easily, swimming past the high-pressure water flow that deterred many divers. Inside, Marson descended 180 feet into a large, dim cavern. This section had tight spaces and jagged rocks. Previous teams had strung a white rope along the narrow passages, marking a clear path back to the surface. Marson simply needed to follow this rope. At 180 feet, Marson signaled his readiness to ascend. His team approved, and he began his journey up. Following the white rope, Marson moved towards a narrower part where the rope changed to orange. This section, 142 feet from the surface, was still far from safety, but well marked. Daylight would be visible at the top of this stretch, signaling the end of the hardest part. However, things took a turn for the worse. Marson ascended too quickly. This rapid rise caused air to enter his bloodstream, leading to an arterial gas embolism. This dangerous condition occurs when bubbles block blood flow in the arteries, affecting both his heart and brain. The effects hit immediately and severely: disorientation, confusion, and muddled thinking. Marson drifted off course instead of following the rope. In his confused state, he swam into a tighter, more dangerous part of the cavern, just 100 feet from the surface. The space was too narrow for maneuvering, and his condition worsened. His movements became frantic as he struggled to understand what was happening. The situation turned critical quickly. Marson's disorientation increased, making it harder for him to navigate the tight space. His breathing became labored and panic set in. The cave's darkness and confined space added to his confusion. Every movement he made seemed to take him further from safety. Marson's team, unaware of his predicament, continued their ascent. The cave's twists and turns blocked their view of Marson. Minutes ticked by as Marson fought against his deteriorating condition and the unforgiving environment. The safety divers, trained for emergencies, remained on alert but had no indication of the crisis unfolding. As Marson struggled, the effects of the embolism intensified. His vision blurred and his muscles weakened. The cave's cold water sapped his strength, making each movement more difficult. Time was running out, and Marson's chances of survival diminished with each passing second. Nearby, safety divers noticed something amiss. They swiftly moved to assist Marson, but the tight space hindered even the most skilled divers. Their attempts to free him from the narrow crevice proved futile. Light signals and touch failed to elicit a response from the disoriented Marson. Realizing their limitations, the safety team surfaced to alert rescue divers. The rescue team quickly descended, fully equipped to extract Marson. Tragically, upon reaching him, they found Marson unconscious, his regulator dislodged and mask pushed up. The rescue divers found no signs of life. Marson's heart had stopped due to the embolism. Retrieving his body from the confined space posed a significant challenge. His gear complicated the extraction, forcing rescuers to cut through his equipment. At 4:47 p.m., they finally brought Marson's body to the surface. His anxiously waiting teammates faced the harsh reality of losing one of their own. A thorough inspection revealed Marson's tank still contained ample air, and his equipment functioned properly. The cause of death was confirmed as arterial gas embolism. The reason for Marson's rapid ascent remained unclear. Some thought a startling event caused panic, while others considered it a rare lapse in judgment from an experienced diver. Regardless, Marson's final moments occurred in his beloved underwater realm, exploring hidden cave systems. Bill Gavin lived for underwater cave exploration. He mapped systems from Tallahassee to the Gulf of Mexico, opening new worlds for divers. Gavin's passion drove him to constantly innovate diving tech, making him a true pioneer. He had charted many caves, but Indian Springs called to him now, and this time he brought a partner. Gavin joined forces with Parker Turner, a Louisiana-born adventure seeker. Smart, funny, and a natural leader, Turner shared Gavin's love for diving. His family's Texas oil wealth gave him freedom to explore at will. Turner moved his family to Tallahassee, volunteering to teach diving at Florida State University. Though unpaid, he worked tirelessly to make diving safer. Turner's key contribution involved placing warning signs at dangerous cave points, saving many lives by keeping inexperienced divers from going too deep. Turner and Gavin formed the perfect team, setting their sights on Indian Springs. The surface looked peaceful, algae-covered waters with local kids enjoying YMCA-provided water slides and canoes. But beneath lay an unexplored world waiting for discovery. They planned a straightforward dive. They would enter the cave, descend to about 30 feet, explore for 45 minutes, then push deeper into uncharted areas. Their goal? Map new passageways and surface safely. The dive seemed manageable for experienced divers like Gavin and Turner. They possessed the knowledge, skills, and advanced equipment needed for such an adventure. Breathing gear in place and plan set, they plunged into Indian Springs depths. Cold, fresh water surrounded them as limestone walls guided them deeper. Everything seemed fine as they ventured further into the dark caves. The dive started smoothly. Gavin and Turner moved in sync, their lights piercing the darkness. They communicated through hand signals, pointing out interesting formations and potential leads. The water clarity allowed them to see far ahead, revealing the cave's beauty. As they reached their planned depth, excitement built. They were about to enter unexplored territory. The cave seemed to open up before them, inviting them deeper. Gavin checked his gauges, ensuring they had enough air for the next phase. Turner took the lead, his powerful strokes propelling him forward. Gavin followed closely, mapping their progress. The cave walls narrowed, forcing them to swim single file. The limestone formations grew more intricate, creating a maze-like environment. The support team began their climb as time ticked away. These divers had to help Gavin and Turner on their return. They needed to decompress, a process that safely reduced the pressure on their bodies from being underwater. Skipping decompression could lead to severe health problems or even death. The gases absorbed during the dive might form dangerous bubbles if they surfaced too fast. As the support team decompressed, something unexpected occurred. A strong current stirred up silt and sand near the cave entrance. The once clear 80-foot visibility dropped to almost zero in moments. Gavin and Turner, deep inside the cave, had no idea their exit was now blocked by swirling sand and debris. They were trapped with no visibility. At this point, they'd been underwater for about 70 minutes, with only 35 minutes of air left. Instead of panicking, these seasoned divers knew they had to find a way out quickly. Indian Springs was known for its challenges, but what happened next shocked everyone. As support divers waited, Dr. Doran Naff, a cave diving expert, investigated the sudden change. Despite years of studying underwater caves, even Knaf was amazed by the sheer scale of debris blocking the entrance. A mudslide had occurred. The cave's limestone ceiling collapsed, sending rocks and debris into the water. This underwater landslide blocked the exit, isolating Turner and Gavin from their support team. Time was running out fast. The support team, led by Lamar English and George Irvine, faced a tough choice. After the collapse, they could either dig through the debris to free Gavin and Turner or surface for more help. Unsure of the debris amount, English and Irvine chose to surface, a decision that would haunt them later. Deep inside the cave, Gavin and Turner's air supply dwindled, but hope remained. Before the dive, the team had placed an arrow marker 500 feet from the entrance as a guide. Finding it might lead them to safety. Dr. Knaf and his team spent years investigating the collapse's cause. They discovered that bubbles created by Irvine during decompression had altered the water's buoyancy, leading to the limestone ceiling's collapse. This phenomenon, never before recorded in diving history, took over 20 years to fully understand. The situation grew more intense with each passing moment. Gavin and Turner's experience was put to the ultimate test as they navigated the dark, debris-filled waters. They relied on their training, staying calm and conserving air while searching for the arrow marker. The support team on the surface scrambled to organize a rescue effort. They gathered additional equipment and called for backup from other experienced cave divers in the area. Every second counted as they prepared to re-enter the treacherous waters. Inside the cave, Gavin and Turner moved slowly, feeling their way along the walls. They knew that rushing could lead to mistakes, potentially using up their limited air supply faster. They communicated through touch signals, reassuring each other in the pitch-black environment. As the minutes ticked by, the tension mounted both inside and outside the cave. The rescue team prepared to face the unknown dangers of the collapsed entrance, while Gavin and Turner fought against time and their dwindling air supply. The events at Indian Springs would forever change cave diving practices and safety protocols. The unexpected collapse served as a stark reminder of nature's unpredictability and the risks inherent in exploring the underwater world. Gavin and Turner finally spotted the arrow marker, but their troubles persisted. The murky water limited their vision to mere inches, making it nearly impossible to locate the exit. Their air supply dwindled dangerously, leaving them with few options. They used a diving slate to communicate. Turner wrote a simple, chilling message: "What now?" Gavin, despite his extensive cave exploration experience, felt lost. He replied, "Stay put. I'll check around." Gavin swam towards their previously placed gas tanks, finding one almost empty. Upon returning, he discovered Turner had vanished. Gavin faced a grim situation. Alone, out of air, and without a clear exit path, he made a final desperate search. Miraculously, he found another line attached to the permanent cave line. Following it, he discovered a small opening that English and Irvine had overlooked. Squeezing through with his last breath, Gavin reached the decompression tanks. He had survived. Turner wasn't as fortunate. On November 17, 1991, Parker Turner, a man who had saved countless lives, lost his own in Indian Springs. Despite Gavin and the support team's efforts, they found Turner's body just 30 feet from potentially life-saving tanks. The diving community reeled from the tragedy. Some blamed Irvine for the collapse, while others suspected faulty equipment. Dr. Knaf's research eventually absolved Irvine. The disaster resulted from an unpredictable interaction between bubbles and buoyancy. Turner's death devastated the community, but his legacy endured. His contributions to cave diving safety and exploration remained etched in the minds of divers worldwide. Gavin continued his work, forever marked by the day Indian Springs claimed his friend. In the aftermath, the diving community rallied together. They reviewed and updated safety guidelines, improved equipment standards, and increased training requirements. Turner's experience and dedication to safety became a cornerstone of these new protocols. Gavin, deeply affected by the loss, became an advocate for cave diving. Hey there, welcome back to Undercover Mysteries. Today, we're taking you into the heart of two terrifying cave stories, where escape was never an option. Both adventurers became trapped in the depths of the earth, fighting to get out, but never seeing the light again. But stick around for the second story. It's not just the ending that's tragic, it's what happened in the moments before that still baffles everyone. Ready to dive deep into the unknown? Let's get started. This final adventure began on a brisk Saturday morning with Donald and his boys, Christopher and Roger, filled with anticipation. The Crooked Swamp cave system had always intrigued Donald, with its complex network of passages and chambers, each one offering a new challenge. Donald and his two boys were leading a scout group. The group members were excited too, though some were visibly nervous about the day ahead. However, Donald was not experiencing his first trip. He had always enjoyed leading the scout into many different mysterious caves. Besides Donald, another scoutmaster joined the trip. The group of 12 boys was a mix of eager and nervous scouts, each ready to face the claustrophobic conditions of the cave. As they gathered at the cave entrance, Donald and Jim laid down the ground rules once more. Safety was paramount. The boys were to stay close, always keep their buddy in sight, and only explore the areas the scoutmasters had cleared. The entrance to Crooked Swamp Cave was almost hidden. A small opening, just 16 inches high, 28 inches wide. It was a test of courage for the scouts, many of whom had never faced such tight spaces before. As they squeezed through the entrance, initial anxiety turned into excitement and anticipation. Inside, they found themselves in a relatively spacious room, about 300 square feet with ceilings between 8 and 11 feet high. Donald and Jim positioned themselves at opposite ends of the room, keeping a watchful eye on the boys as they explored the larger paths branching out from the main chamber. The main chamber pointed to different smaller tunnels, but both the scout leaders were unsure of the path to take, as any one of them could lead into a dead end. However, the boys were much smaller than the two men. Therefore, Donald was convinced that boys will easily make it through the tiniest of the paths. But stupid of his act, he didn't think it for himself. Donald eagerly decided to explore a smaller tunnel that branched off from the main room. Donald, standing at 511 and weighing 160 pounds, was familiar with tight squeezes in caves. His familiarity with caving gave him confidence as he slid into the 18 by 20 inches passage. The mud made the going slippery, but he managed to make steady progress. His sons kept close, ready to relay information back to the group. But as he maneuvered through a tight turn, Donald suddenly felt the ground give way beneath him. He slid into a narrow crevice, unable to stop his descent. Though the fall was only a few feet, Donald found himself wedged in a keyhole-shaped tunnel that narrowed to just 5 inches at the bottom. His arms were pinned at his sides, and every attempt to move only wedged him further into the crevice. He called out to his sons, instructing them to stop and stay calm. He tried to push himself out of the tunnel, but it was no use. Donald remained stuck. Donald asked Christopher to help him get out of the tunnel. He tried to grab the shoes of his father surrounded by mud, but due to confined space, he was left with no choice but to go and get some help. Christopher and Roger, realizing the severity of the situation, retreated to fetch Jim. Jim squeezed into the narrow passage and found Donald's legs protruding from the tight turn. The 30-degree angle made it nearly impossible to pull him out. Each tug only seemed to tighten the cave's grip. Rocks that had loosened during Donald's slide now blocked any backward movement. Hours passed, with Donald still trapped. Jim and the boys couldn't free him, so they called for help. A specialized cave rescue team arrived, facing the daunting task of navigating the 18-inch wide tunnel. They quickly got to work, trying to rig up ropes to pull Donald out of the tight passage. However, despite the combined strength of several people, their efforts only wedged him further under the ledge and rock that trapped him. The rescuers couldn't reach the rock blocking the path, and Donald's hands were pinned by his body in the narrow fissure he had slid into. Realizing that pulling him free wasn't an option, they brought in chisels and small jackhammers to break apart the larger pieces of rock. This painstaking work in the cramped space yielded little progress, but they persisted, hoping to eventually free him. Rescuers managed to keep Donald as comfortable as possible under the circumstances. They used heat lamps and warm water bottles on his exposed legs, but the cold cave air and constant contact with the rock were relentless. The temperature inside the cave was a mere 57 degrees, and hypothermia was a real threat. Cavers with extensive knowledge of the system knew of another cave that connected to the tunnel near where Donald was trapped. They entered this cave from the opposite side and explored until they found a passage leading directly to the tiny tunnel. However, only the smallest cavers could navigate this narrow passage. Two sisters, Lynn and Nancy Taylor, were perfect for the task. Nancy at 52,105 pounds and Lynn at 5 pounds 86 pence had the advantage of their petite size. Lynn, using her tiny frame, managed to wiggle through the extremely narrow passages in the second cave. She reached the point where the caves connected, but it was only 5 inches wide at that spot. Despite stretching as far as she could, Lynn was unable to reach Donald's head. The cramped, winding passage kept her about 2 feet away from him. Heartbroken, they realized that rescuing Donald from that side was impossible, leaving the rescue team unable to provide him with warm water or nourishment. Time was running out, so they called in a specialized rescue team. This new team began digging with the hope of breaking through to the section of the tunnel where Donald was trapped. They worked tirelessly throughout Sunday, trying to reach the right depth. However, by the end of the day, they were still about 12 feet away from the target tunnel. They continued to dig laterally, attempting to find a way to connect to the passage. By Sunday night, Donald had been trapped for 36 hours in a downward angled position. With each passing hour, Donald's condition deteriorated. He grew colder and more disoriented. The rescuers, undeterred, kept digging in hopes of reaching him from another angle. By Monday morning, nearly 48 hours after he had become trapped, the rescuers heard faint grunts from Donald. It was a sign that he was still alive, although suffering from severe hypothermia. This discovery fueled the team's determination to dig even faster and more efficiently. The situation again shifted to terror when they were hit with a challenging bedrock area that was almost impossible to dig through. With nearly 2 days of entrapment, no food, no water, and the relentless cold, the rescuers began to fear for Donald's survival. The nurse used a Doppler machine and EKG to check for signs of life, but found no pulse in Donald's legs. Despite this, the team continued their efforts, refusing to give up hope. They resorted to using dynamite, a risky but necessary measure. Finally, on Tuesday morning, after nearly 72 hours, a doctor reached Donald and confirmed the worst. He had succumbed to hypothermia and exposure. The heroic efforts of the rescue team had not been enough. The nature of the accident and the cave's unforgiving terrain had sealed Donald's fate. Recovering Donald's body was a grueling task that took another day. The tight passages and jagged rocks made it a challenging operation, but the team persisted. Donald's death left a profound impact on everyone involved. The Crooked Swamp cave system was locked for limited access, with entry restricted to experienced cavers who were members of recognized organizations. This urge of adventure reminds us about a similar incident that took place in history. Ignoring all caution, one man, driven by a thirst for discovery, ventured into an uncharted passage that turned their fun camping trip into a chilling nightmare. On April 5, 1999, a lively and adventurous 21-year-old named Robert Kennedy from Moggy, Oklahoma, embarked on an overnight camping trip with his stepbrother Richard Steeler Jr. and their friend Ben Kegley from Tulsa. Their destination was the enigmatic limestone enclave of Hermit Cave, a remote site nestled along the eastern shore of Fort Gibson Lake in eastern Oklahoma. Under a vast, starry Oklahoma sky, the trio arrived with the tranquil beauty of the night setting the perfect stage for their adventure. They set up camp and lit a roaring campfire, its flames casting flickering shadows on the surrounding rocks. The night was filled with lively conversations, recounting tales and legends rich with the history and folklore of the region. Hermit Cave, in particular, captivated their imaginations. Though well known among locals, its labyrinthine passages remained largely uncharted, adding to its mystique. Robert, having visited the cave before, was familiar with its main passage, often deemed mundane by many explorers. However, his curiosity was sparked by whispers of hidden side passages said to reveal stunning gypsum formations and other natural wonders. As they sat by the campfire, warmed by its heat against the night's chill, an eerie sense of foreboding crept over them, adding a thrilling edge to their evening. Eventually, lulled by the crackling fire and the enchanting stories, they drifted off to sleep. The following morning, they woke to the serene sounds of nature and enjoyed a leisurely breakfast. The peaceful morning felt worlds away from the previous night's excitement. As they packed up their gear, the allure of Hermit Cave still lingered in Robert's mind. The captivating tales of hidden wonders ignited a spark of adventure in him, leading him to suggest a detour to explore the cave before heading home. Ben was enthusiastic but had an early work shift, leaving Robert and Richard to make a difficult decision. The golden rule of caving dictates that a party should never venture into a cave with fewer than 3 people, ensuring that if one person encounters trouble, another can stay while the third goes for help. Despite understanding the risks, Robert and Richard, driven by a sense of adventure, decided to take the chance. Clad casually in jeans and t-shirts and armed with only a single flashlight, they made their way toward Hermit Cave. The cave's spacious entrance allowed easy access, and they soon found themselves enveloped in its cool, damp air. The light from their solitary flashlight cast long, eerie shadows on the rock walls as they navigated the main passage. They marveled at the natural rock formations despite the slippery and dim conditions, the cave's mysterious ambiance adding to their excitement. As they made their way back toward the entrance, Robert's keen eye caught sight of one of the rumored side passages. Its intricate layout and narrow confines intrigued him, filling him with eager anticipation. Driven by curiosity and a thirst for discovery, Robert felt compelled to explore the side passage. He assured Richard, who agreed to wait outside with the flashlight, that he wouldn't venture too far. The side passage was a challenging 150-foot stretch filled with numerous twists and turns, requiring a special technique to navigate through the cramped limestone tunnels. With determination, Robert squeezed through a keyhole-shaped formation, feeling a rush of accomplishment. Unbeknownst to him, this narrow point would be impossible to pass feet first on his return. As he advanced, the passage became increasingly narrower, prompting him to reconsider. He attempted to crawl backward, but found it impossible. Hoping to find an opening to turn around, he encountered an hourglass-shaped passage with a 30 degrees downward angle. Exhausted and running out of options, Robert squeezed into the opening, exhaling to pass through. He soon found himself hopelessly stuck, his torso wedged tightly between the rock walls. One arm pinned beneath him, the other pushed back by a rock outcropping. Despite his desperate efforts, gravity worked against him, and his struggles only worsened his predicament. Panicking, he called out for Richard's help. The exact time it took for Richard to enter the cave is unclear, but eventually he ventured in, guided by the faint light from the entrance. Hearing Richard's voice gave Robert hope. However, Richard quickly realized he couldn't assist without proper light and told Robert he needed to get help. After what felt like an eternity, a team of 10 rescuers arrived, pooling their expertise to devise a rescue plan. The 150-foot distance between Robert and the main passage posed a significant challenge, allowing only one rescuer to reach him at a time. Breathing difficulties due to the cave's conditions prompted the use of a ventilation system to circulate warmed air. Realizing drilling a shaft was not feasible, they used manual tools to widen the keyhole compression. Despite their efforts, time was running out, and the line between life and death grew increasingly thin. Exhausted but undeterred, the rescuers rotated shifts to conserve energy. Hours ticked by, and one rescuer noticed Robert's condition deteriorating, signs of potential suffocation becoming evident. After widening the keyhole crevice, a rescuer reached Robert's feet. Although Kennedy was unresponsive, a faint pulse in his legs provided hope. However, pulling him out by his feet proved futile due to the lack of leverage. The team decided to dig around Robert's body, painstakingly widening the hourglass compression. The tightness around his torso prevented them from even passing water, making the situation increasingly dire. After a grueling 5-hour operation, Robert was finally freed and brought back to the cave entrance. Paramedics were ready to assess his vital signs and transport him to the hospital, but it was too late. No signs of life were found. A combination of suffocation from chest compression and low oxygen levels led to his rapid loss of consciousness and eventual death. Robert's first and final cave exploration turned into a tragic struggle for survival, a stark reminder of the hidden dangers within uncharted territories. This tragic event etched itself into local history, underscoring the importance of adhering to safety guidelines and respecting the unpredictable nature of cave exploration.